I'm not going to tell you who I am, what my name is, or where I work. None of that matters. The only thing that matters is what I went through just 2 days ago. I'll only tell you what is directly connected to this nightmare. My daughter and I don't live richly, but we manage. My husband was a heavy drinker. Very heavy. That's why, in the end, he left this world. This story is sort of about him. Or rather, not exactly about him. For a while we were a completely ordinary, average family. And then, at some point, Sergey started drinking. I never learned the real reason, but it began after his mother, my mother-in-law, died. Maybe that's somehow connected to what happened to me. I don't know. Anyway, step by step. I live with my daughter. Her name is Marina, she's 8. One evening I came home from work exhausted. Marina was at the table doing her homework. Everything was as usual. I dropped my bag on the shelf in the hallway, dragged myself into the bedroom to change, then shuffled into the kitchen to reheat yesterday's soup. I was starving. A few minutes after I ate, there was a knock at the door. Strange. I wasn't expecting anyone. It was around 8 in the evening. Maybe neighbors or someone else. I looked through the peephole and saw only the empty landing and a flickering bulb in the corner that no one had bothered to replace in years. My God, where do I live? Why did I have to be born in this dump? My mood was awful. Some bored kids messing around. I thought and went to the living room to watch TV. But I didn't even manage to take the remote in my hand before I heard knocking again. I looked through the peephole, still no one. I opened the door and examined the landing. Empty. Weird. What kind of nonsense is this? Am I losing it? No, I definitely heard real knocking. I went back to the room, lay down on the couch, turned on the TV, and threw myself into my favorite shows. It was the only thing that helped me escape from the gray, endless routine. About 15 minutes later, there was another knock. Seriously? Does this person have nothing better to do? Marina, go see who's knocking, I called. Marina came into my room with a puzzled look and said, Mom, no one's knocking. Maybe I really am overworked. I need to stop taking double shifts or I'll start hearing things. I hugged my daughter, tucked a blanket around her, and we watched TV together. About an hour later, sleep finally caught up with me. I put Marina to bed in her room, told her a bedtime story, and lay down next to her. My sleep didn't last long. A very loud slam of the front door woke me up. It sounded exactly like someone had come in or gone out. For a split second my brain grabbed for the usual explanation. Sergey must have come home from a night shift. Then I jolted fully awake. Sergey was dead. If it wasn't him, then who slammed the door? Throwing on my robe, I went to the hallway. The front door was open. I remembered perfectly that I had locked it. I always locked 2 deadbolts at night. Now it wasn't just unlocked, it was standing wide open. That's when fear really started creeping in, prickling every inch of my body. I closed and locked the door again, put Marina back to bed, and lay down beside her. I didn't sleep again that night. What was that? A break-in? A prank? I'm not superstitious. I don't believe in God, the devil, or any supernatural nonsense. But this was at the very least strange. Toward morning, around 7, sleep finally dragged me under. It was Saturday, Marina didn't need school, and I had no work. When I woke up, I realized I'd only slept a couple hours. A crushing fatigue hung over me, as if I'd unloaded train cars all night. I didn't want to get up at all, but I didn't really want to sleep either. It was a strange state, but I had to get up, make breakfast, feed my kid. I got out of bed, wrapped myself in my robe, and shuffled to the kitchen. The first thing I noticed was a mug standing in the middle of the kitchen table. You'd think, so what? A mug is a mug. But no. It was my late husband's mug. And here's the thing. I had thrown out all of his belongings. Absolutely everything, so I wouldn't see them and constantly think about him. To start life over. How did this mug end up here? What is going on? Real fear washed over me. My whole body broke out in goosebumps. I sat at the table, lit a cigarette, and stared at the mug. 1,000 thoughts raced through my head, but none of them sounded sane. The burning tip of the cigarette finally snapped me out of it when it reached the filter and singed my finger. I remembered why I came into the kitchen in the first place. I tossed the mug into the trash and started making breakfast. The day passed in usual chores, cleaning, laundry, cooking. That morning incident slipped from my mind. The exhaustion didn't go anywhere. but I decided it was just from running around the apartment all day, dusting and decluttering. Marina was outside playing almost the whole day and came back just in time for dinner. We ate. I gave her my phone to watch something on YouTube, and I collapsed on my favorite couch and dozed off. It was around 8 or 9 in the evening. I slept lightly, maybe for an hour or so. I woke up desperately thirsty. I went to the kitchen. Marina was still staring at my phone. I grabbed a mug, filled it with water, and after a couple of sips realized with horror that it was the same mug. What is happening here? This isn't funny anymore. I had thrown it out in the morning. Slowly a thought crept in. Either there was something wrong with this apartment, something paranormal, or I was going insane. I left the mug on the table, put Marina to bed, and went to my room. My head was a mess. First the door, now the mug. Absurd. And this constant fatigue that made no sense. I checked my temperature. It was normal. Somehow, with this mush in my head, I managed to fall asleep. I slept surprisingly well, no incidents during the night. They started again in the morning. The front door was open again. And something else. My late husband's belongings started appearing around the apartment. His sneakers stood neatly on the shoe rack. His jacket hung in the closet. His mug was back on the counter. And so on. Is this some kind of sick joke? Because it's not remotely funny. That evening, Marina's temperature suddenly spiked. She turned as pale as paper and refused to eat. Though I wasn't eating much either by then. Something inexplicable was happening in this apartment. Her fever hit 39 degrees. I called an ambulance, and we went to the hospital. I spent the night there. In the morning I headed home to cook something decent for my daughter. What they served in the hospital could hardly be called food. On the way, I passed a small church near our building. As I walked by, a sudden thought came to mind. Go inside. I'll repeat, I'm the type of person who never believed in any of this. But given the last few days, I decided to step in. I spoke with the priest and told him everything that was happening in the apartment. We agreed he would come by the next day to bless it. I gave him my address and, feeling a bit calmer, headed home. When I entered the apartment, nothing seemed out of place. The fatigue still clung to me, coming in waves, weakening and then surging, but never really leaving. I noticed it got worse whenever I was at home. There was something else. This strong, gnawing sense of dread about the coming night. I didn't know why, but I felt it to the bone. Somehow I managed to cook for Marina, dressed, and left the building. Near the entrance stood my neighbor, Elena Nikolaevna, a kind elderly lady who lived directly below us, one floor down. Sveta, come here. I need to tell you something, she called. Hello, Elena Nikolaevna. I greeted her. What is it? Sveta, dear, I'm very old, and I already have trouble sleeping. Could you please not run around at night? I understand you have a child and all that, but the ceiling is thin, I hear everything. I just can't fall asleep. What do you mean run around? Nobody runs around at night. People sleep at night. And Marina is in the hospital, I said, stunned. And the doors, maybe they don't slam either? She added with a strange expression, like she knew more but didn't want to say. After those words, I turned without another word and walked away. My God, so this is all real. It's not just in my head. She heard it too. Then whose footsteps or running is she hearing at night? We were at the hospital last night. Who was running? With that question in my mind, I headed back to Marina. When I got there, I was shocked by what the doctor said. My daughter was completely healthy. I could take her home. My heart flooded with relief. Marina ran out of the ward and threw her arms around me. About 30 minutes later, we were walking back home. But as soon as our building came into view, the thoughts about something dark and unclean inside started again. Remembering my neighbor's words, I decided to stop by the church once more. The priest was already getting ready to leave, but I begged him to come not tomorrow, but now. That heavy sense of dread grew stronger with every step toward the building. You might ask, why don't you just move out for a while? Where would we go? We don't have anyone in this world. No one to stay with, nowhere to run. The priest agreed, and the three of us climbed the stairs together. As soon as we entered the apartment, his face changed. He quickly took out everything he needed, said prayers, sprinkled holy water around the rooms, and hurriedly left. His parting words were, You must move out of here. There is a strong evil presence in this place. It cannot simply be driven away. You thought your late husband was visiting you, but sadly, that's not so. Something else comes to you. Something terrifying and incomprehensible that feeds on your fear and life energy. I've done all I can. I hope it helps at least a little. I closed the door behind him and went to the kitchen, lit a cigarette and grabbed my head. What was that just now? What evil? What is sitting here? Thinking it over, I realized everything added up. He said it feeds on fear and life energy. That explains my constant weakness and exhaustion. And fear, my biggest fear, was the memory of my husband. I was terrified of thinking about him. And then his things started appearing around the apartment. Goosebumps ran all over me, my heart started pounding faster. Move out. There's nowhere to go. No money, nothing. On the street. At minus temperatures with a child? Like it or not, we had to spend this night in that apartment. After dinner, I put Marina to bed, took a shower, made up the couch and lay down. My eyes closed almost immediately. Around 2 in the morning, something happened that I will never forget for as long as I live. It is the most terrifying thing I've experienced in my 35 years. Marina woke me up. She had gotten up at night to use the bathroom. And you know what she asked me? How she woke me. Mom, who is sleeping with you? Sleep vanished instantly. I felt clearly that someone was lying right next to me. My fear hit a level I didn't know existed. I literally started shaking. Something was lying in my bed, right beside me. In the mirror on the nightstand, I could see a reflection of what it was. A figure. It had human facial features, but the face itself was ghostly pale, almost completely white. The eyes and mouth were pitch black. It was wrapped in my blanket, lying on my bed, facing me. What is that? Panic swept over me. I slowly slid off the bed. The figure didn't move. I left the bedroom, dressed myself and Marina, and just as quietly we slipped out of the apartment. It either didn't notice us or let us go. I don't know. I was shaking, Marina was crying. We had no idea what to do. We stepped out of the building, and then I saw something that finished me off completely. From the kitchen window of my apartment, something was watching us. That thing. It stared straight into my eyes. The feeling of terror is impossible to put into words. I decided to try asking Elena Nikolaevna to let us stay. For about 10 minutes I knocked on her door. Finally she opened and, seeing our state, invited us in. I told her everything that had just happened. She is a religious woman, so she believed us and allowed us to stay in her apartment for a while. I decided to sell my own place. I don't know what that thing was, but I wanted nothing more to do with that flat. Life at Elena Nikolaevna's slowly returned to normal. Everything fell into place. Marina went back to school, I went to work. Everything was fine. Until one night I woke up to knocking on the front door. And then the sound of it slamming shut.